Fans watched Ian Roussel work his magic on cars for years on full custom garage. But cameras never told the whole story. The 13-hour filming days in the 115-degree desert heat, the scripts that turned real inventiveness into false TV moments, and the heat fatigue made them collapse. Ian was steadily becoming a part of the TV production machine. When he eventually told the truth about what was going on, it showed a dark side of reality programs that no one talks about. Ian Roussel was born in Sunland, California, on November 19, 1970. The hospital record said he got there at 11:19 in the morning, but when he acquired his first driver's license in 1987, it said he was born in 1971. The mistake was blamed on a clerical muddle produced by the Sylmar earthquake in 1971, which closed government offices for weeks. But his family always remembered the real date. Every year, they prepared him a cake that looked like a license plate with the number 11-1970 on it. People who lived there even remembered the day. Due of an unusual hailstorm that covered Foothill Boulevard in ice. A neighbor's lifted F-100 had to take Ian and his mom home. Because of the weird start, fan pages started to fight about how old he really is, but Ian doesn't care. He regularly says, "Every year I'm either 54 or 55. It makes me feel young." During the day, Jerry Roussel, his father, worked at Lockheed's Skunk Works. They turned their garage into a workshop every night. He brought home spare metal from planes, which Ian, who was just 8 years old, used to make panels for his go-karts. They worked together in that garage for more than 4,200 hours between 1978 and 1985. Ian came up with that number by looking through his dad's old project records that were covered in oil. By the time he was 10, he could already read cam lift tables and gap spark plugs. Jerry had one rule, though. First build, then drive. Their first big work was fixing up a 1955 Chevy Nomad they bought for $75. They worked on the floor for 32 nights, using bomber sheet metal. That exact wagon is still in Ian's current Mojave shop, where it all started. Ian got his diploma from West Valley High School in 1989. He parked his half-finished '29 Ford Model A pickup right in front of the gym instead of coming in a cap and gown like everyone else. The principal had instructed him not to bring it, but it was only metal with bright orange wheels. He didn't care. He had a 2.7 GPA, yet he received the highest score ever on the school's metal fab final. 98 out of 100. He only lost 2 points since he wrote his report by hand instead of typing it. Rod and Custom Magazine's 1990 Young Guns edition had a picture of that automobile, which was made from 11 other cars and $612 worth of parts. 2 weeks later, he rejected down a scholarship to study drafting. What was his reason? College can't weld. Ian was the only child. There was no one to share tools with or to blame when something broke. He had spent more than 3,100 hours in the garage by the time he turned 18. It's worth more than a year and a half of work. His mom, Donna, maintained everything in photo binders so it was easy to find. When the creators later developed Full Custom Garage, those binders constituted their storyboard for the first season. Jerry's family says he wanted a second child at one point, but he changed his mind after Ian, who was 5 at the time, ripped apart the family's washing machine to figure out how the spin cycle worked. He didn't get toys for Christmas, he got tools. He received a stick welder when he was 12. At 15, I got a used English wheel. Because of those early investments, he was the only one who knew how to fix things like his father did. He never looked at automobiles like other kids did. Ian thought of cars as art even before he could drive. When he was 9, he spent 6 weeks crafting a 4-foot copy of a '32 Ford grill out of foam and then covering it in fiberglass simply to see how it looked. He said in a 2015 podcast that he didn't even care if the car could move. He often forgot to put steering wheels on his models. In 7th grade art class, he stunned his teacher by turning in a rolling clay model instead of a painting. There were no doors, just a hatch on top. That model earned awards in the county. His dad finally made him get a license by threatening to tow away any project Ian couldn't move on his own. Ian still maintains he's just a guy who makes shapes and then adds wheels. Ian didn't even consider about going to college after high school. He went right into the car scene in Southern California. Ian was studying from famous people like Boyd Coddington, Chip Foose, and Jesse James while his classmates were choosing their majors. During the day, he worked at their stores, and at night, he made his own cars. By the time he was 22, his work was already on display at big events like the Grand National Roadster Show in SEMA. He learned things in that way that school couldn't teach him. And it also enabled him meet the people who would eventually support him in his profession. Ian launched his own store when he was only 22. People didn't think he would last because most of the males in the business were in their 30s or 40s. Ian had collected enough money from modest work and winning shows to rent a small facility, and his family helped him purchase the tools he needed. That head start meant that Ian had years of experience by the time large collectors started to notice him in the late 1990s. He didn't do any advertising. No billboards, no magazine ads, just a simple promise. I can make anything. People spread the news quickly. Ian said yes to strange demands while other stores said no. He made bumpers that looked like they were from the future, fused Cadillac pieces to Ford chassis, and made unique aluminum windshields. People traveled from all around the state to get something that no one else would dare make. His shop quickly became a sight to see. People parked outside just to see the buildings go up. His satisfied consumers performed all the advertising for him. Ian accomplished the opposite of what other builders did. He made old cars look like they just came off the assembly line. He took roofs off, lowered frames, and welded together elements that didn't fit together to make something completely new. His cars were weird. A lot of people liked them. Some people termed them hot rods for punk rock. People who believed in tradition thought he was wrecking perfectly nice autos. But Ian didn't care what people thought. He wanted to make something new. And that brave approach is what finally got him noticed by TV producers and collectors all around the world. The first few years were tough. He hardly had enough money to live. For a while, he lived at the back of the store, where he ate ramen and slept on a couch next to his tools. In the middle of the 1990s, an automobile exhibition in Las Vegas altered everything. Ian brought a crazy rat rod that he almost gave up on since he didn't have enough money. That one automobile got the eye of a film crew. After it aired, collectors began to phone. As orders started to pile up. His shop might have gone out of business like so many others if that moment hadn't happened. But it did happen, and it changed everything. Ian Roussel made a rat rod for a vehicle show in Las Vegas in 2005. He didn't know how the people would respond. People with odd builds weren't always welcome in groups like the Road Zombies and Burbank Choppers. Ian's car didn't get laughed off the lot, either. Instead, it became the buzz of the lot. That one moment changed everything for him. He went from being a metal worker with a torch and a dream to being one of the most well-known names in custom vehicles. Back from the Dead is a documentary that tells the complete story. And all of a sudden, everyone wanted to know who made that car. Something even larger happened right after the event in Vegas. Ian made it to the Caddis Report. There are 10 bespoke automobile builders in the country who are the best. It's not simple to get on that list. It is based on skill, creativity, and power. Most of the people who worked on it had been doing so for decades. But Ian was right there with them. Not many people in the business knew his name just a few years ago. His brave decisions and rough, raw style were now creating a new norm. It wasn't just a victory. It showed that you could break the rules and still get respect. His constructions weren't staying in the US for long. Cars were being crated up and exported from Long Beach to locations like Japan, Germany, and the Netherlands. It was more than just paperwork for exports. These were full-blown international shipments for collectors who had seen his art on film and wanted to acquire a piece of it. Not many people who built anything on their own have gotten that far. Even fewer managed it without a major name behind them. It indicated that Ian's art had become something that people all over the world could relate to. Then the requests started to grow crazy. Ian would always say, "If you can dream it, I can make it happen." People really thought about that. Clients desired cars that weren't merely different on the outside. They wanted devices that rolled and conveyed a tale. Some people wanted secret features, including gadgets or plot twists based on movies. Some of them had such strange ideas that other builders had already turned them down. But Ian never backed down. He found a way to make it all real. People didn't disregard the weirdest ideas that came up in his garage. They were built. After that, major names came to see them. Actors, musicians, and producers. Some people sought autos that were ready to drive. Some people wanted props or showpieces. The strange thing is that most of them didn't want their names to be known. That made his art seem odd and mysterious. But behind closed doors, people in the business began to talk. Ian wasn't simply making hot rods anymore. He was making something that people in power wanted, but could only obtain from him. It all started in 2003, which is strange. That's when Ian sent a DVD to a producer. There wasn't anything special about it. Just short movies of his creations for a stand at a trade event. But that DVD got into the hands of people who make TV shows. They saw something unique. He didn't want to appear on TV. He didn't even want to. But the video showed something that really happened. No tricks, no fake showmanship, just talent, fire, and real metal. The show didn't air until 2014. Full Custom Garage came to Mojave TV on March 28. Most shows get the go-ahead quickly or not at all. Years took Ian's. There were test pilots, alterations to the production line, and a lot of waiting. But when it finally came out, it was different from everything else. No fake deadlines, no contrived drama, just building. The work, the tools, and the process were the main topics of each episode. People sensed it. They saw the change and kept observing. Ian did something that no one saw coming in season 1. He made a chopper trike from nothing. Not a car, but a full-fledged motorcycle with 3 wheels. It was a dream of mine. Something he had wanted to do since he was a kid. But it was a big risk to perform it on TV, from bare metal to show ready. He used lengthened forks, big tires, a coffin tank, and even a Volkswagen carburetor. People couldn't believe it when it first came out at Chopper Fest. That one episode demonstrated that Ian wasn't locked in one lane. He could make anything. The show ran for more than 90 episodes over the next 10 years. Each season brought more stress, more builds, less time, and more people watching. But Ian didn't stop. The store became a place of pilgrimage from 2014 to 2024. People came from all around the world. Some people sent their autos thousands of miles so he could work on them. The show was more than simply substance now. It showed that skill still mattered. One of the most popular episodes was when Ian transformed a 1948 Packard into a lead sled for his pal Tom. A lot of people would have chosen a Mercury. Ian didn't. He chose something more difficult. The roof of the Packard was all incorrect. It required days of grinding, chopping, welding, and reshaping. But it turned out great. And it wasn't just about the car. It was about being pals. That made fans feel connected. They kept watching it. That build allowed Tom a chance to shine that he never saw coming, and it became one of the most talked about episodes in the series. Next came the electric dune buggy. Ian found a forklift motor in a pile of rubbish and utilized it to make a clean, green off-roader. It looked crazy, with brilliant red paint and lightning bolts, but underneath it was all tech and custom adapters. One-time mounts, genuine engineering. And he did it quickly, finishing it just in time for the birthday reveal. That was approximately 2017, when no one else was thinking about building personalized electric cars. The media paid attention when Ian did it before it was hip. Ian took an old bus and turned it into a mobile workshop not long after that. It wasn't just for looks. He made the frame stronger, installed operational electrical systems, and set up equipment for full production on the road. Every little thing was made by hand, like fold-out benches and concealed storage. Fans got to see the complete thing, from a rusty shell to a fully functional machine shop on wheels. People were shocked when he drove it to a big car show. It wasn't simply cool, it was brilliant. The buildings weren't staying in the area by 2022. People could watch Ian's work being packed up and sent to Japan, Australia, and all around Europe. These weren't just standard exports. They were one-of-a-kind cars that were made by hand. Shipping them involved making custom containers, filling out legal papers, and sometimes even writing letters by hand for the buyers. People recorded themselves opening the boxes as if they were getting treasure. And in some ways, they were. Ian Roussel and his wife, Jamie, lived in the Mojave Desert for 6 years. It is one of the most inhospitable places on Earth. Temperatures in the summer often got as high as 115 degrees and even 130 degrees. They lived near Furnace Creek, where the world's highest air temperature was recorded at 134 degrees in 1913. Every day, there was sun, wind, and a kind of dry heat that made people tired and worn out. The dust didn't go away. Sometimes the air was only 7% humid. There were no neighbors, no streetlights, and no break in the silence. It was the kind of life that could either end a relationship or make it stronger. Ian and Jamie met in the thick of all this trouble. They became close quickly and deeply. Jamie quit her job as a hospice nurse in Las Vegas. She brought her teenage kid with her and met Ian in the desert. There were no distractions out there. It was just the two of them and whatever they wanted to make. Jamie was more than just a partner in life. She entered into Ian's world of custom manufacturing and became an important member of the company. While Ian worked in the shop, she took care of the behind-the-scenes chores, like producing movies, answering customer questions, and keeping things in order. It was more than just a marriage. Creativity and determination kept the cooperation going. Ian did something that Jamie will never forget in 2019. He made her a 1962 VW dune buggy from scratch as a gift for their wedding. It wasn't just a nice automobile. It featured a metallic flake finish, fiberglass sculpted by hand, and every detail was made with care. On an episode of Full Custom Garage, they showed the whole project. It was one of those uncommon times on TV. That seemed like it was really happening. That buggy turned become more than just a present. It stood for everything they built together, both in love and in business. But it wasn't simple to live out there. They felt the weight of being alone. They didn't anticipate the heat, wind, and solitude to affect them in these ways. Jamie had always been shy when cameras were around. But she ended up being part of a show that was getting more and more popular. She had to fight through her anxiousness and tiredness just to keep up. They had to move their house and workshop a few times simply to stay ahead of the desert. The epidemic came next. They were under considerably more pressure since they were locked down and cut off from the outside world. But instead of coming apart, they used the projects they were working on together to keep things together. One of the most personal decisions they made was not to have kids together. It let them concentrate on their work, which was making vehicles and growing their brand. But it also had its own kind of weight. They felt the strain from people who didn't get it. The desert could feel even emptier when there were no kids there. Jamie sometimes talked about sections of her life that she felt were still going on. They still stood by their choice, though. Knowing that they had put everything they had into the world they made together. Things started to change as their YouTube channel increased and their TV show got more popular. The enchantment of a fully personalized garage faded over time. The show began out seeming like true storytelling, but as time went on, every episode started to feel the same. There was always a problem, a setup, and a very exciting end. The producers told Ian to stick to the script. Things that used to be fun and spontaneous began to feel more like work. Ian said that he started to dislike the countdowns and production timetables. What supporters thought was a huge success started to seem like a trap. The more time the cameras were on, the less Ian actually built. He spent a long time under scorching lights uttering the same things over and over. He sometimes thought he was acting instead of doing work with his hands. More than half of his time on set by 2020 had nothing to do with tools or making things. It was all about getting the correct shot, drama, and emotion. He felt like a craftsman who had lost touch with his work. There was a considerably tougher reality behind those polished 42-minute shows. What looked like swift, clean changes were really the consequence of 60-hour weeks full with stress. It took only a few days to finish builds that should have taken months. The team worked in dangerous situations and sometimes filmed for 13 hours straight. Welding close to flammable materials, bypassing important procedures, and hurrying through fragile tasks. These actions happened solely to meet a deadline. Ian later said that they sometimes used shortcuts. Not because they wanted to, but because the show needed them to. Even the meetings with clients ceased becoming real. What used to be real brainstorming sessions became planned scenes. Producers told Ian and the automobile owners what to say, making them act astonished or upset. It just took a few minutes to film, but it took hours. Instead of having fun tossing around crazy ideas with other gearheads, there was artificial tension. And cheers that were forced. It wasn't about the vehicles anymore. It was all about making the show interesting enough for the network bosses. The crew's worst times were when they had to film in the desert when it was really hot. Ian passed out from heat exhaustion one day while filming in the hot sun. The temperature had gone up to more than 110 degrees. He was standing next to running machinery in full gear with almost little water. We had to contact the paramedics. Everyone realized it was too risky, yet they kept going for the sake of the lights and camera positions. Ian continued going because the show had to go on, but there was a serious risk. Full Custom Garage has been a popular place for people who appreciate custom cars for years. Ian finally spoke up about the silence in late 2023, though. He put a simple statement online that hit home. "I give up. No drama. No network shutting down." He made the choice. And just like that, all the talk about low ratings and hidden cancellations went away. Fans were shocked. Why would someone leave a show that was doing well? Ian gave the solution right away. He was worn out. He was sick of the rules, the same old thing, with the show feeling more like work than fun. But he didn't quit the same way that other people in the business did. Ian told Mojave TV well in advance that he was leaving. He didn't just disappear or get angry. He made his case, finished his work, and helped the group finish the trip the appropriate way. People who didn't like the show nonetheless liked how he handled things. It wasn't about power or a breakdown. It was about keeping his creativity safe before the formula took it all away. He was done making episodes that felt like they were just repeats of the same thing, because he was under pressure to make TV shows that didn't fit how he really worked. It all built up over the years, laboring in workshops where the temperature reached 115 degrees and pushing out build after build while staying inside a box established by the producers. At some point, the burnout took over. Ian wasn't mad. He was very tired. He claimed that the script was getting in the way of actual creativity. At that moment, he couldn't take it anymore. He said, "Take this job and shove it. I'm not going to work here anymore." Not a breakdown, not a stunt for attention, just a builder who chose freedom over burnout. He didn't leave admirers hanging, though. As scheduled, Season 9 premiered and ended in January 2024 with 6 final episodes. It started with "Is That a Cadillac?" on the 3rd of January. And went on until January 31st with games like Surf and Safari and Keep on Truckin'. It was a nice ending, a good way to say goodbye to a show that had been on the air since 2014 and had more than 80 bespoke designs. Most reality shows go off the air or get cancelled. This one ended the way Ian wanted it to. Ian had already started something fresh before the final season came out. He started his YouTube channel, Full Custom Ian, in January 2023. It wasn't just a side job. It was a completely new approach to build. No rigid runtimes, and no outside producers. Some episodes were 18 minutes long. Some went on for more than 90 minutes. People liked how honest it was. The channel got 100,000 subscribers in just 4 months. One construction, the End of the Desert Ranch project, had 2.4 million views at the end of the year. That was only the start. Someone else was also getting up behind the camera. Jamie. She had been there from the beginning, but in 2023, she really stepped up. She became the producer, editor, and creative partner. Her editing made their stuff go viral. One episode about their dogs got 500,000 views in only 1 week. They had never been able to work that fast with their prior system. By the end of 2023, they had put out 26 entire episodes on YouTube, which is more than 3 times what they used to make in a year. Jamie ultimately became a full co-owner of the company and managed a growing staff that made decisions about everything from storylines to negotiations with sponsors. Then it got emotional. They shut down the famous Desert Ranch store in September 2024. For than 10 years, that 2,600 square foot facility had been the center of their business. That place made more than 180 builds. In just 2 days, the goodbye video got 750,000 views. Fans were quite sad. The last project, the last job, went for $280,000, which was more than any of their previous sales. But the closing wasn't a loss. It caused more than 2,000 emails in a week, giving people all throughout the country new places to buy and new chances. The next thing that happened was a big improvement. They moved to a brand new store at the Mojave Air and Spaceport in October 2024. Almost 4,800 square feet with good airflow, air conditioning, professional tools, and workspaces that help them develop faster and cleanly. In just 5.5 weeks, they finished their first project there, a crazy futuristic ride named Rocket Rod. That used to take a lot longer. The new place also made it easier to film, with clear video quality and lots of room for visitors, events, and partnerships. One of the builds from that YouTube run stood out. The 1956 International COE vehicle, which people called Little Jewel. It was a model that was hard to find. One of only a few thousand that have ever been manufactured. Ian put the whole build online, highlighting all the choices and problems that came up. No cuts, no scripts, just genuine work and real results. When it finally moved on its own in the spring of 2025, supporters didn't see it as a truck, they regarded it as a symbol. This is what it was like to really build an automobile. Exciting, messy, and personal. Then came something even older. A Mercury convertible with 4 doors from 1941. Ian got it in July 2025. It suffered damage to its structure, problems that weren't obvious, and very few parts were available. But he nevertheless treated it as a love letter to American automobile design. Every component was made just for the presentation, and the audience saw every step. He even joked that it would be Jamie's car, but it also showed how far their work had come. It wasn't simply about tools and metal. These buildings were now part of their family. Ian was doing well online, until something significant happened on TV. Motor Trend Studios stopped making things in-house on November 18, 2024. Gone, Roadkill, and more than a dozen other shows disappeared overnight. Ian's choice to leave TV all of a sudden didn't simply seem brave, it seemed logical. While others rushed to find platforms and change contracts, Ian was already building without any restrictions.